And good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel, back with the Wandering Mariner. So today we're talking about where do mariners typically live? Like, do they live in apartments? Do they live in houses? Do they keep residences for themselves? Or do they just live out of their sea bag and go day to day traveling around the world? So we're going to talk a little bit about it. Today I got a really great question from Toasty3759. And he says, do people pay rent for a home or apartment while they are living on the ship, or do they not own one at all? And this is like, it's totally up to you. Do you want to do that? But here are some of the factors that I think you need to take into account on, especially if you're new and getting into the merchant marine field, just that you kind of understand. So a lot of it has to do with, like, back in the day, they used to say a sailor's home is his ship and the world is his country. And that's still kind of true today, but things are changing a lot. And with that, I think it kind of comes down to like a duration of a deployment. So if you are working for SIU, your contracts are going to be typically very short or shorter than maybe military sea lift command. So if you're going for like union jobs, you're going to be in and out, back and forth, home all the time possibly, and you're going to want like a place to kind of bounce in and out. But understanding like the duration of a deployment and like how long you're going to be gone, that matters a lot with mariners. And I think that for most guys, you know, you have a girlfriend, you have a wife. Once you start having a family, you start thinking about, man, I really need to have a place when I get home, you know, to meet. Another factor I think is the financial aspects of it. And if you have an apartment, can you sublet your apartment when you're gone? If you're going to have a house or a mortgage, do you want to rent your house out and turn it into an investment property? Because a lot of times, and this is like when I'm talking about like the modern day mariner, the modern day mariner is not just sailing, traveling. When they're young, that's kind of their mindset. But after a while, you're like, I have to invest. I have to, certain things. So if you bought a property and then you were renting it out and somebody else is paying your mortgage while you're gone, that's a side hustle on top of being a merchant mariner. So keeping a house, for one day when you have a family or an apartment, because property values, are super high right now. But eventually they're going to come back down a little bit, hopefully. But if not, over time, I mean, things are just going to get more expensive in our country. So an investment in property, provided you get a decent interest rate and money down and all those kind of good things, can be a good investment for the future to know that you're going to have a place later on in life. So and it's everybody's perspective on what you want to do. But when you're starting out, you don't have to have an apartment. You don't have to have a house. But, you have to think about the stuff you do have. If you get rid of a place, where are you going to store it? And that is kind of the conundrum I see with a lot of mariners, because you have furniture, you have your TV, you have your stuff. Well, what is the value of that stuff, and how much does it cost you month to month to put it into a storage center? Same thing for like vehicles, like your car or your motorcycle or, your truck. Those things are your freedom when you're ashore sometimes. Guys just ruminate and fascinated about, like, I can't wait to get back on my bike and take a long road trip. And that's what they want to do on their free time when they get home. But if you're going to be gone for 6, 8, 10 months, a year, what kind of condition is your vehicle going to be in? How much does it cost for storage? Where are you going to store it? Are they going to start your vehicle or not? So these are all the dilemmas that every mariner comes up to eventually. And some of the biggest mistakes I see mariners do is, especially with military sea lift command, is they will just put their car in long-term parking and just let it sit. And they come back, their tires are flat, the car's not running well, because cars are meant to be run. And you can't just leave a car in the sun, ocean air for 10 months and expect to come back and turn the key and it's going to fire right back up again. So you got to think about those things way ahead of time about where are you going to store your vehicle? Where are you going to store your stuff? How much is it going to cost? And delineate that for yourself, because nobody's going to, it's not done for you, and teach their own. By getting rid of your vehicle, also the financial aspects are, you don't have a car payment, you don't have insurance. Insurance is all time high right now. So if you wanted to really live out of your sea bag and live aboard ship, that's totally doable. But I think it's more challenging with like the unions than with military sea lift command, because with the unions, like you don't get paid for housing. Like when you get off a ship with military sea lift command, after you take your time off, you go back to the pool typically. Some jobs they could do detailing from home, and I'm going to do another video about that later. But you go back to the pool, and when you're in the pool, they are paying you S&Q, which is substance for food, and they're paying for your quarters. They're paying for your hotel room. So you don't have to come out of pocket. But when you're with SIU and you're in the Union Hall, that is all coming out of your own pocket. It's just another thing to measure out, which I talked about earlier. But, when you don't have a car payment, when you don't have those things, and you're with Military Sea Lift Command, you could definitely take a little time off and then go right back to the hotel. Typically, they don't like it when you go from a ship right to the hotel, though, because they're like, well, why'd you get off the ship if you're ready to go back to work right away? So I always tell people, take a little time, breathe, don't go right back to work. Enjoy yourself, take a little mini vacation or whatever, because you will burn out if you just keep going back to back to back to back. So, another aspect I think of renting or having a place out is just home basing needs. And for myself as a mariner, it always feels good to come home and have a place to live when you're home, a place to spend time with friends and family and whatnot. Now, if you want, and also like shipping your goods, like I know that if I see something online, I can ship it on Amazon, and when I get home, it's here, That's the benefit of having your own place. Now, you can do it with P.O. boxes and whatnot, I guess, as well. But you're going to want some type of home of record, either a permanent P.O. box or maybe a family member's house that you can really count on. I don't recommend that you put friends as your home of record. And the reason why is friendships end, things happen. You don't want to, leave stuff with friends and you come back and your friends sold your stuff, or they sent you an email, or they moved, or whatever the issue is. It's just, you can count on family sometimes more than friends. So, and then lastly, I think it kind of ends on what are your future plans with sailing? And when I say that, it's because, and this statistic is totally me shooting from the hip. There's no, I tried to research it and find actual factual statistics, but just me from my hip, I would say 70% of all mariners that start sailing probably leave the merchant mariner field within 5 years of getting going after their actual sailing. So, and that's counting the ones that go to the university and whatnot. And for whatever reason, and there's good and bad with that, because I think everybody that comes to sail should always have an exit plan. You should be looking to level up your life. This shouldn't be I'm going to be a Stewart utility for 20 years, then I'm going to retire. Nothing wrong with that if you want to do it. But I think that, there's a lot of opportunity to level up. And if you want to stay in the merchant mariner fields, there's tons of opportunity to keep going. You just got to make sure that whatever avenues you're picking, they're not dead ends, because there are some dead end jobs out there. But if you continue leveling up and continuing striving to do better and better, and if not, I always say move up or move out. because if you're not moving up, then there's no point of being here. You're just going to be a worker bee. You're going to burn yourself out. And that's what happens a lot of times. Guys come in, they're not motivated to continue and level up their lives, and they just burn out. And they're like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. They want to have a life. They want to have, you know, and I would say, 7 out of 10 probably leave within that first 5 years. And that's, guys that went to college for 4 years. And then after they graduate college, they realize, well, I didn't have a girlfriend the whole time I was in college. I've been out on ship for how many years? I don't have a chance to even meet somebody. In fact, I remember sailing with one mariner, and he was a young guy. And he's like, oh man, my mom is just on me to meet somebody. She wants to have grandkids and such. And I told jokingly, I said, just tell your mom, hey mom, the only women I know are bartenders and hookers. So who do you think I should marry? And that is not true. There are plenty of nice people in the world that you can meet and so forth. But I think that is super important that you guys just think about like your future plans when you're doing this, because things change when you go ashore or when that ship finishes a deployment. So I'll give you an example. If you get on a military Sea Lift Command ship out of Virginia, the crew's going to be there. And the crew, you're going to find like a different vibe of mariners. You got the mariners that are like, I've been here forever. Virginia's my home base. We're going to go on deployment. And when we come back from deployment, I'm going to stay on this ship because I live 15 minutes down the road. And every day I get to go home to my apartment while we're not on deployment and whatnot. And a lot of people have that homesteader and idea that they can go home. Now, if you're living aboard ship on that same ship with somebody in Virginia, you'll find out that maybe a lot of the cooks, they love to be on that ship because the ship's not scheduled to go anywhere for a while. And they will stay there, but they know every day after dinner's over, they're done. So how do you think the quality of food is? Everybody's running for the beach because everybody lives ashore. Everybody wants to go ashore. You're the sole person that lives on board that's maybe not from Virginia. You don't have an apartment. You don't have a place to go. So you're on board the ship. You're like, well, I'm going to eat on board tonight. And you find out that the food is just ratchet because they don't care. They're just slopping it together because they're going ashore and you're there living aboard the ship. So sometimes the quality of life in your home ports when you get back stateside can be less living aboard the ship. So you got guys that will be on a ship, and as soon as they find out the date that ship is going to leave, they'll put in to get off that ship 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the ship leaves. So they're like, okay, either I'm going to get paid extra money the whole deployment and they're not going to be able to get me off, or I'm going to get off the ship before the ship leaves. And then that way I can just go to another ship that's sitting here in Virginia. And that's kind of their MO, their plan. Because they want to stay home as much as possible. They're married, they got kids, their kids are graduating high school, college, whatever. But when you're young, you don't necessarily need that maybe. But also some other things to think about when you're on a ship that's back stateside. Typically, budgets are kind of deployment focused. So when a ship is overseas working, they don't really care about the budget as much because they're like, whatever the Navy needs, the Navy gets. The Navy wants to do an unrep at 4 a.m, we're going to do an unrep at 4 a.m. Everybody's going to get overtime. When you're in Virginia, they're like, oh, we're only doing unreps between 8 and 5 o'clock in the evening. We're not doing any overtime. When we do go out and do operations, and when we're in port, we're not really going to pay anybody overtime because everybody's going home anyways every day at the end of the day. Nobody wants to be here late working. You're there, you're like, I'll work late, but the budget's not there. So sometimes there's less overtime when a ship is back stateside. And, those are just the things that everybody takes into account when you're like, should I live aboard the ship or should I what? And I always tell people when you're a new hire, feel it out. Like, don't sell your house right away. Find some friends to stay in your house or rent it out or sublease it or whatever at first. if you want that home base feel or vibe. But as you get a feel for it, because like I said, 70% are going to probably quit within the first 5 years. And you can see that on a lot of YouTubers channels that do merchant mariner content creation. There's old timers that have been doing it for a long time, and they'll give you the facts. But when you see these young ones that are like, yeah, I'm making that paper, and they're dancing on camera for you, doing these entertainment videos, not so much information, but more entertainment stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But most likely they're not going to stay because they find out that this can be a hard job. It is a job. It's not all fun and games. It's not a side hustle. Now, you can have other side hustles of investments and whatnot, but while you're on board ship, that's kind of your life. So just wanted to share this with you guys today. I hope you guys have a great day. We'll hit you on the next one. Make sure you like, subscribe, and peace.